Judges on the bench, let's go in live.
SA 073-164. Dr. Murray is present in court with his counsel, Mr. Chernoff, Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Gorgian, Mr. Pena. The people are represented by their counsel, Mr. Walgren and Ms. Brazil. All 12 jurors and 5 alternates are present. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Let me start off by apologizing. There were serious traffic issues this morning, and they were complicated by serious elevator problems that we had this morning. And as a consequence, you were inconvenienced, as were others involved in the proceedings. I'm sorry for the logistical problems this morning. You've been in good spirits. Please continue to remain in good spirits. I did provide you with extensive jury instructions on Friday afternoon. I provided you with verbal instructions as well as printed instructions, which you have before you. Those instructions will continue throughout the course of your jury service in this case. I also provided you with verbal and written admonitions and orders regarding your conduct, which of course will remain during your jury service in this case. Let me address a few topics, if I may, at this juncture. First of all, at any point in the proceedings, if you feel you need a break to use the facilities or for some other reason, just raise your hand or otherwise notify us, and we'll be happy to accommodate you. Don't feel embarrassed if you need to excuse yourself for a few moments. There may be points during the trial when you are excused from the courtroom. That happens rather frequently. So there will be times when I will ask you to please step down out of the jury box, and of course be careful when you step down, and to go into the jury room for a few moments. We may be discussing some legal issues that really have no concern for you. So please take that into account and know that there may be occasions when you are excused. Also, there may, and in all likelihood, will be delays during the course of the trial. I'm going to try to do my very best to keep things running, but in the real world of trials, things happen. There may be delays, there may be issues that develop, and they may occasion delays. And if there are, well, I once again apologize for them. I'm going to try to avoid them as much as possible, but things do happen. People get sick, people get delayed. There are issues that develop which we must address. So if there are any delays, please remain patient, and please understand that those delays are my responsibility. Don't take it out against any of the parties in this case. It has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with them. At this point in the proceedings, the attorneys have an opportunity to present to you what is called an opening statement. An opening statement is an overview or a roadmap of what a particular attorney believes or expects the evidence will show in this case. An opening statement is not evidence, neither is it argument. The attorneys are not permitted or allowed to present argument at this point in the proceedings. And as I mentioned to you on Friday, you certainly may take notes at any points during the course of the trial, and each of you has been provided with a booklet with note paper and pens. You can feel free to take notes, but remember the cautionary instructions I provided to you on note-taking, namely that it may very well interfere with your ability to evaluate the demeanor of witnesses. So take all that into account when you hear any opening statement of a party. Thank you. At this time, the parties having announced ready, Mr. Walgren, do the people wish to present an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence in this case will show that Michael Jackson literally put his life in the hands of Conrad Murray. The evidence in this case will show that Michael Jackson trusted his life to the medical skills of Conrad Murray. The evidence will further show unequivocally that that misplaced trust had far too high a price to pay. That misplaced trust in the hands of Conrad Murray cost Michael Jackson his life. On June 25th, 2009, Michael Jackson was pronounced dead. May I ask the clerk to dim the lights, Your Honor?
Mrs. Benson, Mr. Sam, please, Mrs. Benson.
Thank you. He was just 50 years old. He died alone in his bed on the second floor of his Holmby Hills mansion. In the house at the time were the defendant, Conrad Murray, and Michael's 3 young children, and some staff that helped run the home. Because there was no immediate, obvious cause of death, the coroner's office soon took a very active role in the investigation, not only performing an autopsy, but doing detailed toxicology analysis to determine what caused the death of Mr. Jackson at 50 years of age. And what we learned through that investigation is that propofol, lidocaine, diazepam, a metabolite of diazepam called nordiazepam, lorazepam, and midazolam, all testing positive in the heart blood, all administered by Conrad Murray on June 25th, 2009. Further investigation by the coroner's office through statements, through interviews, through the autopsy, through the toxicology findings, led to the conclusion that the levels of propofol found in Mr. Jackson's body were at levels similar to general anesthesia when someone is put under for a surgical procedure. The coroner also found that the levels of lorazepam were pharmacologically significant and that they played a contributing role in the death of Mr. Jackson, because these benzodiazepines work in conjunction with the propofol to heighten the effects that each drug has. Following these findings, the coroner's office concluded this was, in fact, a homicide. That Michael Jackson's death was a homicide. And more specifically, the coroner's office concluded that the cause of death was acute propofol intoxication, coupled with the contributory factor of the additional benzodiazepines in his system. Upon discovering and ruling and determining this to be a homicide, the investigation continued. And the investigation centered on the dates preceding his death. The investigation centered on the events of June 24th and June 25th, 2009. And the question became, what occurred between June 24th, 2009, when Michael Jackson, shown in this picture, is performing at Staples Center, singing Earth Song. What happened between that time and approximately 12 hours later, when Michael Jackson is dead on June 25th, 2009? What you will learn through the evidence is that what happened during that time frame is that the acts and the omissions of Michael Jackson's personal doctor, Conrad Murray, directly led to his premature death at the age of 50. Ladies and gentlemen, as the judge indicated, this part of the trial is what is referred to as the opening statement. And it is, in fact, an opportunity to give you an outline of what we expect the evidence to show, to give you, as the court said, a roadmap. Oftentimes in trials, witnesses are called out of order due to scheduling and things of that nature. They may not always come in and testify in a kind of chronological order. So this is an opportunity for both parties to present to you in hopefully a logical fashion what we expect the evidence to show. And as I indicated, what we expect the evidence to show is that Conrad Murray repeatedly acted with gross negligence, repeatedly denied care, appropriate care to his patient, Michael Jackson, and that it was Dr. Murray's repeated incompetent and unskilled acts that led to Mr. Jackson's death on June 25th, 2009. Now, to give you some background as to what was going on at this time in Mr. Jackson's life, what was going on in Dr. Murray's life, I want to take you through some of the evidence that you will hear in this case. Now, at this time, Mr. Jackson was preparing for probably one of the biggest tours of his life, entitled "This Is It." It was going to start at the O2 Arena in London. It was going to be Mr. Jackson's comeback tour. And Mr. Jackson indicated one of the reasons this tour was so important to him was that he wanted his children to have the opportunity to see him perform on stage in front of a large crowd, that they had never really had that opportunity, and that he wanted to give them that chance to see him perform in such a manner. The tour was scheduled to begin at the O2 Arena, and it was expected to last approximately 11 months. It would then continue in the months and years ahead, but at that point, it was for the approximately 11 months to take place at the O2 Arena in London, England. What started as a 10-day tour soon grew to 31 dates. When those tickets quickly sold out, it grew again to 50 dates. Those dates, too, all sold out. Now, in preparation for what was going to be a massive production and a massive tour, obviously rehearsals had to take place. And the rehearsals were taking place in Los Angeles beginning in May of 2009. They started in a small scale at Center Staging in Burbank, where basic production and rehearsals were taking place with various members of the production team. When the production and the growth and the scale of the rehearsals outgrew that location, they moved to the Forum in Inglewood. They remained at the Forum for approximately just about the entire month of June. And then just days before Michael Jackson's death, they moved to a larger scale arena, the Staples Center, so that they could more accurately replicate what the actual tour was going to be. At the time of Michael's death, the rehearsals were taking place at the Staples Center. Now, during this time, Michael Jackson was living at 100 North Carolwood in Holmby Hills. It's just off of Sunset Boulevard. What you're viewing here is an aerial photo. Where I'm pointing down below would be the front door. It's a two-story mansion, large yard, pool, lots of privacy. Mr. Jackson lived there with his family, his 3 young children, Prince, his young daughter, Paris, and his youngest son, Blanket. It was Michael and his 3 children that lived there on a permanent basis. He had staff, he had security, he had a nanny, he had a chef, but it was Michael and his 3 children that lived at 100 North Carolwood, which came to be where Michael would die. What do we know about Conrad Murray at this time? Well, we know Conrad Murray was a medical doctor. He was not an anesthesiologist. He was not board certified in cardiology. In fact, at the time of Michael Jackson's death, Conrad Murray was not board certified in any medical specialty. But Conrad Murray had met Michael Jackson previously in Las Vegas when Michael was living there in 2006. They had remained in contact. Dr. Murray had treated the children while in Vegas for various minor ailments such as runny nose and things of that nature. He had treated Michael for various minor ailments over the period of time. But they maintained contact from that point of time in 2006 through 2009. And what you'll learn is that in March 2009, Michael requested that Conrad Murray accompanied him on his O2 tour, the This Is It tour. Conrad Murray readily agreed to participate and accompany Michael on this tour. What you'll learn is that Conrad Murray initially requested payment of $5 million for 1 year of medical service. This was quickly rejected, and an offer of $150,000 a month was put on the table. What you will learn is that soon a contract had been drafted And Murray was to be hired, Dr. Murray was to be hired as an independent contractor. Part of the terms of the contract provided that Murray would provide general medical care, that he would provide medical emergency care, and that he would provide reasonably requested services. And this was all to be for the tour in London, the This Is It tour. In exchange for what Dr. Murray was to provide per the terms of the contract, Dr. Murray was going to receive, as I indicated, $150,000 a month, airfare to and from London, and housing in London for the duration of the tour. Again, the $5 million request of Dr. Murray was rejected, and the agreed upon amount was $150,000 a month. What you also learn is that this contract was never signed by the parties. What you will learn is that Conrad Murray, both as an individual and as part of his medical practice, signed the contract, and it's dated June 24th, 2009. No representative from AEG, the tour promoter, had signed it. And at the bottom, no representative, well, specifically Michael Jackson, had not signed it. So although it had not been signed, Conrad Murray had made it very clear that he welcomed the opportunity to enter this lucrative agreement. In fact, Conrad Murray made it so abundantly clear of his intention to enter into this lucrative agreement that he soon told his clients, his previous medical clients, to find another doctor. He sent out letters in June of 2009 advising his clients, because of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I had to make a most difficult decision to cease practice of medicine indefinitely. So he was saying goodbye to his clients with the intention of signing on for this $150,000 lucrative agreement that he, at least through words, had reached with Michael Jackson. I've told you a little bit about what Michael Jackson was doing at that time, and I've told you a little bit what Conrad Murray was doing at that time. You also need to know a little bit about propofol, and you will hear a great deal about propofol throughout this trial. What is propofol? Propofol is a general anesthetic agent. It's defined as an intravenous sedative hypnotic agent for the use in the induction and maintenance of anesthesia or sedation. Put simply, it's what's used to put you under when you have to be have forced mechanical ventilation, if you have to have surgical procedure. It is used in a hospital to put you under. It is not a sleep aid, it is not a sleep agent. It is a general anesthetic. It has great strengths. It is a wonderful drug if used by someone who knows what they are doing, someone who respects the dangers as well as the benefits of the drug. Some of its favorable properties include the quick onset of sedation. It acts rapidly. Also, at the end of it, rapid return to consciousness. So it acts quickly, and it also brings you back out rather quickly. Minimal postoperative nausea or vomiting. You generally feel okay once you come back out of it. However, with every benefit comes a cost, and there are unfavorable properties that must be respected by the doctor who is administering such a potentially dangerous drug. The unfavorable properties are that it leads to respiratory and cardiovascular depression. There's a narrow margin between sedation and full general anesthesia. And what that means is there's a continuum between a light or conscious sedation and full general sedation or anesthesia. And you need to be expert in that field and knowledgeable to be able to track that continuum and have the safety measures and precautions in place so that if the patient passes through that continuum to a deeper level of sedation, you have to ensure, as the doctor in charge, as the doctor with the legal duty of care, that you can manage any consequences that come forward. Also leads to the loss of ability to breathe and the ability to maintain your airway. And finally, because of these properties, things can go bad very quickly. Very quickly. And if you are not knowledgeable and competent and prepared, it will lead to the death of your patient. The package insert that comes with it, that every single person would see if they just opened up the package, in plain text indicates that continuous monitoring is essential. Facilities for maintenance of a patent airway must be immediately available. This is in the package insert. Patients should be continuously monitored for early signs of hypotension, apnea, airway obstruction, and/or oxygen desaturation. A simple reading of the package insert would impress upon a competent medical doctor the precautions that need to be taken and the inherent dangers of using such an agent without the skills and knowledge and resuscitative equipment to handle it appropriately. In this case, you will hear about propofol. You will hear the science of propofol. You'll hear about the concentrations of propofol. And as it relates to this case, what you'll hear, there are two separate vial sizes. It comes in a 100 milliliter vial. It's about that big, and that's the large vial. It additionally comes in a 20 milliliter vial, which is it's about that big. Each of these vials has the same concentration, and that is for each milliliter, there are 10 milligrams of propofol. 10 milligrams of propofol for each milliliter. So for the 100 milliliter vial, it's 1,000 milligrams of propofol. For the 20 milliliter vial, it's 200 milligrams of propofol. Now, how did propofol come to play a role in this case? Well, we know, as I indicated before, that in March 2009, Michael had enlisted the services of Conrad Murray, and Dr. Murray had quickly told his patients that he would be leaving medicine indefinitely. We also know that Conrad Murray then sought out a pharmacist, that Dr. Murray made arrangements with that pharmacist to purchase very large quantities of propofol on a regular basis. What we learned is that Dr. Murray went to Applied Pharmacy in Las Vegas and met with pharmacist Tim Lopez. Conrad Murray was not honest with Tim Lopez, and Conrad Murray indicated that he had a clinic in California when no such clinic or medical office existed. Conrad Murray indicated he had a large client base in California and that he wanted to get, eventually made arrangements to get shipments of propofol sent to what he characterized as his medical office in Santa Monica. What we know now to be what he characterized as his medical office was the apartment of his girlfriend and the mother of one of his children, Nicole Alvarez. So these arrangements were made between Conrad Murray and Tim Lopez, and the shipments began taking place from Applied Pharmacy in Las Vegas to the apartment of Nicole Alvarez, Conrad Murray's girlfriend. There was no medical practice, as I indicated, and the shipments began on April 6, 2009. On April 6, 2009, we know there was a shipment of propofol to Nicole Alvarez's address. And in that shipment were 10 bottles of the large 100 milliliter bottles, 1,000 milligrams of propofol each. There were also 25 of the 20 milliliter bottles in this first shipment of April 6, 2009. This first shipment, Conrad Murray's first order of business, resulted in a shipment of 15,000 milligrams of propofol to the apartment of Nicole Alvarez. But the shipments did not end with just that first shipment. On April 28th, there was another shipment of propofol to the apartment of Nicole Alvarez. This shipment was larger, 40 of the large 100 milliliter bottles, accompanied by 25 of the 20 milliliter bottles. This shipment accounted for 45,000 additional milligrams of propofol. Following the April 28th shipment, we had a shipment of midazolam and lorazepam, sedative agents that Conrad Murray also admits to having administered to Michael Jackson on June 25th, 2009. And this shipment contained 10 vials of lorazepam as well as 20 vials of midazolam. And that was on April 30th, 2009. The shipments continued. But interesting to note, as it relates to Conrad Murray's knowledge of what these drugs were doing and his willingness to proceed with this manner of care in this fashion, we learn that on May 10th, 2009, Conrad Murray made a voice recording